You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. Kopech Day has turned into Kopech Night, and Michael Kopech's night was not that long. Dave was going to literally rush over here after work, band practice, sit at the bar on Kopech Night. We had the thing DVR'd, we were going to watch it, then we are going to do like instant reaction on it. And after 2 innings, I just told him, hey man, it's cool, don't worry about it, I got this. So I've watched the 2 innings, and so have a lot of other White Sox fans. What may have been the most exciting 2 innings of White Sox baseball in at least the last 10 years. Was it overboard? Did it show us anything? I want to talk about that. And I'm not going to just be talking just to you. I'm going to be talking to a lot of people that I'm trying to get on the line right now. Like, my phone is sitting next to me, and I've reached out to some radio peeps. I've reached out to peeps from other podcasts. I've reached out to Sox fans who just love to talk baseball. I've reached out to Dad. We're going to get him on. Whoever I get in the next half hour while I'm sitting here for this 30 minutes of Sox gets on Sox in the Basement to talk Kopech Night. Plus, there's a lot of things going on in Sox in the Basement this week. So before I get to my first guest, I kind of want to tell you a few things that are happening here. First off, Ron Kittle is going to be on this show. I know it now. In my heart of hearts, Ron Kittle to be on the Sox in the Basement podcast. How do I know this? The Chicago White Sox finally approved this podcast, Sox in the Basement, for White Sox guest. I was blown away by it. I got an email. I got told, who do you want first? I said, I want Ronnie. I reached out to Kitty. I said, please, come on the show. I've gone through the team. He got back to me right away. I'm all up for it. Let's set up a time. I'm excited. So very, very, very soon, my guy, my hero, Ron Kittle, in the basement on Sox in the Basement. It's going to be awesome, okay? And then hopefully the guests will just continue to roll in. They were like, who do you want first? I was like, Pelka Kittle. I'm sorry. For me, it's got to be my childhood hero. Speaking of Pelka, speaking of him and the 3-man race, I want to talk about that today as well, because the 3-man race, that race that we've been talking about now for the last month on this show, about Delmonico, Pelka, and Davidson going head-to-head really for probably just one spot. I mean, it's probably not going to be more than one spot. Next year, things are going to dry up. Jimenez is going to get here at some point. Even if they hold him out for the first month of the season, he's going to get here. And when he gets here, none of those guys play center field, and neither does Jimenez. And Garcia is a corner outfielder. So now I got Garcia and Jimenez, and we're all dried up when it comes to everyday at-bats for those 3 players. Only one of them, I think, stays on the 25-man roster. 2 maybe to start the year. One of them by the end of next year. This is a competition. 3 men enter, 1 man leaves. You would be surprised as to who is actually leading the competition. So we're going to talk about that coming up. First guy on the phone talking about Kopech. Instant reaction. Dad's on the line with me now. What'd you think of Kopech Day?
He was good. I mean, he's got a little groove yet, but I mean, he threw pitches. They were in the strike zone. Didn't throw a lot of balls. Saw a few pitches from him. Fastball's good, obviously, and he threw a nice curve. Get a changeup in there. Didn't get rattled when he put the man on base early with a couple of hits. So yeah, I think it's a pretty small sample, but I think he can bring it up there at 98 miles an hour. And Stone says he can throw it to 103, which would be nice, and says he will get there when he loosens up. So we'll see. We'll see what happens the next time out. If he gets pitched a little more in the game.
Are you shocked by the amount of hype? Did you see? I mean, you're watching the game, and people are like, it's like Game 7 of the World Series out there, or maybe we just haven't seen a lot of hype lately. I mean, were you shocked watching that on TV?
It was a little funny watching everybody stand up in the first inning for, just going for strike 3 in the first inning. Usually you don't see that till later in a game or a big moment in a game.
I felt like we were being like Cub fans. I felt like it was a very Cub type thing.
You know what? That's perfect. Because actually, that came to my mind. I feel like it was at a Cub game. In the first inning, we're cheering like it's the 8th inning. So yeah, but no, Kopech is a shot in the arm maybe for us, and he's got to come up probably and get a little work, and then so he's ready for next year. That's probably the plan.
Let me read you this stat. You just tell me if this blows your mind, okay? This year in Major League Baseball, The most 95 mile an hour or more pitches thrown in a single game by a pitcher was 79. Okay?
Okay.
Kopech had 41 such pitches in the first 2 innings that he pitched.
I'd say he can bring it. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Justin Verlander. You know, who throws the ball a lot of times up on that upper range, and can still reach back on 90 to 102, 103. He's just a kid too. He's only 22 years old or something like that. So guess what he'd look like when he's 27. So you know, he's got it. He's got that power pitch, and so we'll see what happens with him.
Michael Kopech looked confident, and I don't think it was cockiness. I know Dave likes to sit down here and call him Nuke LaLoosh. I get that. It's easy to make that comparison. He throws really fast. He's young. We've all seen Bull Durham. It's Nuke LaLoosh. But he looked confident, not cocky to me. He looked like a man who was like, I belong here. Welcome to the bigs. I've arrived. I'm ready to go. I mean, that first inning was just, I think it was intense because we just wanted him to go out there and be like that Brendan Fraser guy. That movie. What was that movie? The Scout with Albert Brooks. That's the one. Brendan Fraser, Steve Nebraska. We wanted him to be Steve Nebraska. We wanted 27 up, 27 down. Instantly, Major League Baseball steps in and says, you know what? Normally, we wouldn't let the White Sox into the postseason race, but we're adding like 40 wins, and we're giving them a fighting chance because now they've got Steve Nebraska. I think there was something going on in the crowd where people thought that could happen. It couldn't happen, but that's what people wanted. And then right away, a couple guys on, and you're like, oh, crap. It's just another White Sox debut that's going to make us all angst-filled and angry, and he's not going to work out, and then just magic happens. First of all, the home plate umpire decides that a check swing that in no way was a strike is a strike, and he gets his first strikeout, and now all of a sudden the place erupts, and then he gets through the inning, and he gets Kepler to fly out, and he's through the inning, and everybody's all pumped up. It took him 22 pitches to get through the first inning, but he got through it. And he didn't give up a run. And he comes out for the second inning, and he strikes out all 3 guys that he gets out in the inning. Sure, after the first 2 outs, 2 guys get on. There's that hit pitch that I'm not really sure hit the guy. And then you got the single. But he gets out of the inning, and he strikes out all 3 guys. All 3 outs in the second inning are from strikeouts. The stat that I just told my father is incredible to me. I mean, in 2 innings, he got himself more than halfway to the overall mark in Major League Baseball this year for pitches 95 miles an hour or more. The guy brings the heat. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, it's fun to see the hype. It's fun to see how excited everybody is. I do think it was a little overboard with the, I don't know, just, I mean, I like seeing the fans excited. It's really cool, but I mean, come on. I mean, he's got some things to work on. I mean, Michael Kopech, I already saw the spray chart for where what was being called. He got a lot of pitches called strikes that weren't actually strikes. He's going to run into an umpire that's not going to give him that liberal of a zone, who's not going to get caught up in the moment of a fan base that is just energized in an electric ballpark, and he's going to have to find his way through that. There is going to be growing pains. He's going to get good. He's going to go bad. He's going to have good outings. He's going to have bad outings. But I think the kid is here. Okay. And I get the whole call up now. Like all week long, I've been sitting around and I've been thinking to myself, how do they wait so long to bring him up? Why bring him up now? Why, if you waited this long, why take away from all those years of control? Why start the clock now? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I said before that I'm like, well, you know, I mean, with pitchers, you never know. He could come up. He might not work out. You send him back down. He doesn't start this year down. Doesn't start the next year in the majors. Maybe the clock doesn't go the way that everybody thinks it's going to go and things work out for the better. But on the other hand, I think that the White Sox honestly thought this guy's clock was going to start in June this year. I think the Sox were treating him this year like they're going to treat Jimenez next year, where it's get him past Super 2 status and let him start. And when they got to that point this year, he wasn't ready. I'm starting to think now, reading between the lines, that he's actually late to the party, that the Sox wanted him sooner, but there was something that was missing. My longtime friend Ed is on the phone line right now. Ed,
hey.
Yeah, you're on the broadcast basement with me. We've been doing it for 10 years. We've done radio with each other for decades. And you've been on the show before. You watched the excitement and everything. What do you think? Do you think that this was always the plan to get him up this year and he wasn't ready yet? Is that possible? Is it possible that Kopech was not ready and this isn't getting him here early, but it's getting him here when he was finally ready?
Well, that's what Rick Hahn said, is that he was bringing them up because now is the time. He's bringing them up because he's ready. He's finally ready to face Major League pitching, and I service time be damned. I think they want to see what he can do in front of major leaguers at this point. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the way people treated Kopech Day today was akin to Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, whatever you want to. It's a 12-year-old getting a Nintendo on the birthday to see it. We had people hanging on every pitch, according to Benetti, and standing and cheering for a potential strikeout of Max freaking Kepler in the first inning of an otherwise meaningless game against the Twins. So, I mean, the hype machine was in full view here. But yeah, I think they were just waiting to see if he had something other than a fastball and a slider, because if that was going to be the case, that he was just going to be a two-pitch guy, and that's kind of all he showed tonight, by the way.
That's all he showed tonight. It's all. I mean, yeah. But then that could have just been like the adrenaline, and we were going to see more in the third and fourth inning. I don't know. We got Kopech Day Part 2. Kopech Strikes Back coming up in 5 days, so I'm excited about that as well,
exactly.
Dude.
Kopech Strikes Back.
It's so hype filled today. It's such a big deal that I got Scott King from WGN Radio waiting to talk to me as well, and he's cooler than you, so you got to wait in a little bit. I'm going to have you back on.
Sure. An actual media member's more important than me.
Not a podcaster, but an actual media member. So I'm going to talk to the actual media member, then I'm going to talk to you, okay?
Yeah, all right.
I don't really care if it's okay or not.
Hey, this is Acoustic Mike from Broadcast Basement, and you're listening to Sox in the Basement with Chris and his buddy Dave. I did the Broadcast Basement with Chris for 10 years, and nobody gave me a show. I'd leave if I had anything else to do with my life.
Remember, the Broadcast Basement is available everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at broadcastbasement.com. Scott King from WGN Radio. He does Blackhawks Crazy. He was out at the rate for Kopech night. He was out there because there's a Blackhawk player throwing out a first pitch, so he gets to just stand at the top of the dugout steps and wait for Michael Kopech to just walk right by him. In fact, I think you were like blocking him from getting into the dugout. Is that what I saw in the picture I saw on social media?
Yes, I put a picture of him up, and then I noticed that you could see me like right in front of him in the picture on the Jumbotron. You could see him, and then behind him you could see Jumbotron and see me right in front of him. And I kind of cropped it and put another picture up and saying, thank God I wasn't blocking the dugout stairs, because I was right next to him. And he's a huge guy. He's ripped. I saw him in the clubhouse before the game. That doesn't sound weird to talk that way about it, actually. But, no, he's very strong. And I'm glad I wasn't in his way, because he would have bulldozed me over.
I saw Michael Kopech in the clubhouse. He's really ripped. I was down there, when he was changing his clothes. I mean, it sounded a little odd. That almost takes the focus off of the fact that you would have been the most hated person on the south side of Chicago if he would have, say, tripped over you trying to get into the dugout to start right before his start.
Oh, yeah, I would have been the equivalent of, I would have been the south side Bartman, for sure.
Oh, worse than Bartman. They would have been on your front lawn right now. Your poor wife would be called 911 screaming.
Oh, yeah. Oh, people today, they would put my address right on Twitter immediately.
So you're there, you get to see the hype. What'd you think of it? What'd you think of the hype? I know there were a bunch of walk-up sales, even though there was bad weather. I know there were people who were trying. I mean, I had looked at ticket prices. You could get 2 seats right behind third base the day before they announced him as a starter for $12 a seat. Because I was thinking about going with my dad. And then I was like, you want to go in a game on Tuesday night? I found some great seats for like $12 a piece. He's like, I don't know, your mother this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, we'll just pick another night. And then the next day they announced that he's going. I went back and looked, $90 in the secondary market. All of a sudden, $90 in the secondary market for that ticket. Can you believe that?
Yeah, no, I can. With that, people haven't been this excited about a Sox prospect in a long time. Talking about the 13th ranked prospect in all of baseball, and for good measure. He's been lighting it up in AAA. I think he was 4-0, 184 ERA since the All-Star break. I think he had 59 strikeouts in that span, too. And, I thought only 2 innings, 52 pitches tonight before the rain delay, and then it was smart for them to take him out. There's no sense in him playing after that. But I thought he looked great. there was like, it felt like an event. There was you could feel, honestly, you could feel it in the air. It was a big event. It felt like a big moment for the franchise, and being right there when he walked out, he was pumped up, seemed a little nervous, but I thought he did really well. He had 52 pitches, 35 of them were strikes, struck out 4 guys tonight, allowed 0 runs in the 2 innings he pitched, so I thought he looked great. Every pitch seemed to be like 97, 98, pretty good control. He hit a guy, didn't give up too many hits, and yeah, I thought he was great. I thought he looked really good.
Listen, extrapolate his numbers out, and that's 18 strikeouts in a 9-inning game. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I think it's time right now to just, start building the statue, right?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Come on. That was the most ludicrous thing you've ever heard in your life.
Look, I think he's going to be very good. I think he had a rough start in AAA, but the way he got hot there, the way he looked tonight, I mean, the thing is, Maurer, he was doing good that first at-bat, and then Maurer got a hit. And, a lot of guys, after a rough go to start, their first start, especially if it's widely reported, they get crumble, and he didn't. He faced a little adversity early on, and he overcame it and looked pretty dominant, just a couple innings. But I think it's a guy where, it's like I was there to cover Alex DeBrincat tonight on a smaller scale. He lived up to the hype and played all last year for the Hawks and let him in goals. I think it's a guy who's going to live up to the hype. And you hear everyone already, I don't know about Hall of Fame, but everyone's been saying that already. And you see he should have some time to get a couple more starts, right? So we'll see how he looks in those, and he'll get more innings. But I think he has the makings of a great pitcher.
That's awesome. Now, listen, before I let you go, because I know you're driving home after the game, and I appreciate you talking to me for just a couple of minutes. You're there at the top steps of the dugout. You got to see him before the game. You're around him and his players, him and the other players. Just give me a sense of what it was like in the dugout or in the clubhouse as that game was starting beforehand or while he's taking the field. I mean, did the other players look excited? Do you think it charged up the whole team just to be in that atmosphere where it's been basically dead all year long with the exception of some big moments? And here you have this electric atmosphere and this phenom prospect that's come up that everybody's expecting something big from. What was it like? What did you observe when you were sitting there right by the team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, first is when I showed up, talking to some other media people I know were commenting about how it was the most media they've seen in a long time around the Sox. And a little surprising to me, there was a lot, but not a ton of people, but there was a good deal of media. So there's that. You could tell it was obviously a special event already with the media presence. And then, the players that talked before the game kept joking about, why seems to be more media here? Why all the media here? So they're already kind of pointing out that something big's going on, and you kind of witnessed, if you were there in the clubhouse or in the dugout or by the field, that a lot of players, walking by Kopech, were excited to have him. They were, fist bumps and just talking to him a little bit, and you could tell it was all in good fun, and they were excited. And when he walked by me, like I said, he was pumped up. And I think being in the clubhouse and seeing him at his stall, kind of trying to just relax before the game. And he seemed calm before the game. I thought he seemed maybe just psyching himself up as he was walking to the dugout. But seeing him get ready and seeing his teammates interact with him, seeing all the media, for me, I think that's what kind of played into it feeling like such a big event that I just witnessed.
Kopech night was an event. Scott King from WGN and Blackhawks Crazy was there, and I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Anytime.
All right, you drive safe.
All right, Chris. All right. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement.
All right, a quick break from the Kopech Day reaction, because there's another thing going on that I want to make sure we're paying attention to, and that is the battle. The 3-man enter, 1-man leaves battle that I believe is going on. It's hot and heavy between Matt Davidson, Daniel Pelka, and Nicky Delmonico. And what sucks is that I like all three of these guys. I mean, they all seem like they're cool dudes. I would love to have any one of them down here in the basement. I would hope that I would get all three of them down here at some point during the off season before one of them is jettisoned, because I don't think all three of these guys start on the opening day roster next year. And I think two of them start and then one of them's on the team, because when Eloy gets here, baby, those at-bats are drying up unless something crazy happens in the offseason. And I think that the White Sox are trying right now to figure out which one of these guys is the guy that they're like, yeah, I want to see more of him, and which one of these guys is like, we got a lot of guys just like him, and he's just not measuring up. Here's just a quick look at their batting statistics, the ones that really matter, heading into this moment of the season, okay? Matt Davidson leading all three of them in OPS. Matt Davidson he's doing really well in slugging. He's a little bit behind Pelka overall this season, but the two of them are blowing Nicky Delmonico out of the water. And average-wise, Davidson's 230, Pelka's 242, Nicky's 230. Not a lot of big difference there, okay? But even though you're thinking to yourself, well, Davidson's in the lead, but Pelka, man, he's the man. Nicky's probably the odd man out here. Here are the OPSs, slugging percentages, and averages for these three guys just in the month of August. You may think Daniel Pelka is way out in front of him because of the way that he's been so heroic over the last month or so. Daniel Pelka's third in OPS. He actually falls behind Nicky and stays behind Matt Davidson. In fact, Davidson's almost at 800. He's at a 796. He has turned it on. His slugging's at 500 even right now, and he's hitting 269 in the month of August. Here's a guy who's realized there's a competition, and he wants to win it, okay? Nicky Delmonico is only hitting 224 and a 297 on base percentage, but he's got a 728 OPS. All right, Pelka's really fallen off. He's got a 277 on base percentage and a 242 batting average, but his slugging, 403, brings the OPS down to 680. 680. Now listen, I love Daniel Pelka as much as the next guy. I really do. I love his attitude. I love his cockiness. I love the pinch hit home runs. I love it. But he's got a 680 OPS. Now that this three-man competition is heating up, he's actually falling off. That isn't going to work. Okay? I'm all in for Pelka mania, but he isn't going to win any competitions. The only way that he beats out Davidson and Delmonico is if they sit there and they say, well, we've seen enough about Nicky. We don't see any more potential. This is what he is. And Davidson is having a rough time in the field. And so we want Pelka because he's like a folk hero. He could be the second guy. He could beat out Nicky on just the fact that they're like, this is the new hot thing and we might as well keep him. But I think Matt Davidson, if he can just find himself a niche, if he can just continue to do what he's doing, it's going to be hard to deny a guy that could end up with an OPS over 800, who could be one of the few guys with an OPS over 800. You know the only two guys with OPSs over 800 on this team right now that would be qualifiers for stats? Jose Abreu, Omar Narvaez. That's it. Matt Davidson is third. Here's a guy who sees the competition and has answered the bell. The other two guys better wake up. Let's get back to Ed. Ed's in the broadcast basement with me. 10 years, Ed. We've been doing the broadcast basement podcast. 10 years. It's been multiple times one of the top 100 podcasts in the world, according to Stitcher Radio. It's recorded down here at the same bar that Sox in the Basement is recorded at. It's the main podcast that has now spawned a bunch of other ones, including this one. Huh?
We broke the bar in.
We did break this bar in many, many ways.
We probably broken the bar, actually.
It's definitely not a show for the faint of heart. So it's not like this one. There's some cursing and some other really weird things that happen.
Anything.
Yeah, not at all.
In fact, you listen to Broadcast Basement, you're likely just to faint. Sorry to say.
Anyway, speaking of fainting.
Yes.
How many times did you faint on Kopech Day?
You know, I had the Ricky Renteria lightheadedness. Just the Ricky Renteria lightheadedness. You know, Joe McEwing had to come to my office and finish the job for me today. But no, I'll say this: I was actually relieved to see there's a certain level of relief and like feeling like the world is right, because there's a White Sox pitcher who wears number 34 who is consistently damp on the mound and throws really hard. So I feel like the spirit of Freddie Garcia has returned to my life in a lot of ways. And I can't tell if it was the rain or if Kopech is just, pro wrestler level of sweaty when he's on the mound. But I appreciated the dampness level he was demonstrating tonight on the mound. It was very heartwarming.
I can see him greasing up. I can see him being that kind of guy that like does
Well,
like
right?
the Dolph Ziggler thing where he just gets everything wet, or like the Rollins thing, like he just kind of like he like dips his head in a bucket of water and comes out with the wet look all the time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. He's just Shield levels of wet on the mound, which is fine by me. I'm okay.
This is the new Shield. Like this is the Shield. This is like the White Sox Shield. You got him. You got Pelka. I mean, like you could put together quite a shield.
And who's Dean Ambrose in that situation? Yolmer, maybe.
Yeah, Yolmer. Yolmer's Dean Ambrose. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's you got your Rollins is Kopech, okay. Your Reigns is Pelka, and your Yolmer Sanchez. That's your Dean Ambrose. That right there.
Exactly. That's the lunatic. Yeah, that's the lunatic fringe right there.
He's the lunatic fringe. Okay, so he struck out 4 guys over 2 innings. Then it rained, and God was like, "You've had enough, Kopech. You have to wait 5 days."
You've had enough.
Did you feel better or worse with what you saw about what you compared to what you thought of Michael Kopech before Kopech Day or Kopech Night or whatever it is, the national holiday that will always be known as Kopech Day?
Yeah, that Governor Rauner is going to declare Kopech Day in the state of Illinois heretofore. I watched some of, because they'll broadcast some of the minor league games. So I'd watched some Charlotte Knights games with Kopech on the mound, but frankly, the camera work, it's hard to see, and he's facing bums down there. And so you can't really tell, but I'll tell you the comparison, and I feel blasphemous saying this about it, but the comparison when I saw the ball coming out of his hand, the way his pitches moved, the way the Twins were reacting to it, I felt like I was watching young Kerry Wood, which makes me feel better about Kopech in some ways, because I was worried that even if he is limited to kind of a 2-pitch guy, that there are certain guys who can get away with it and certain guys who can't. And when Kerry Wood was in his early 20s and before his arm started to wear out, he was a guy who could just sit there and throw sliders and fastballs all day and make guys look stupid. And I'm okay with that if that's kind of the level Kopech's at. But he also threw 45 pitches in 2 innings, and he can't keep that crap up.
No, there's lots of
Sox are going to go anywhere with him. Yeah, I mean that part of it. I sat there and I watched. I'm like, maybe 2 innings was enough for this guy, because I think I would have been sitting there wondering about him. 110 pitches over 4 innings, might have struck out 6 more guys in that time frame. But at the same time, it was a lot of pitches, a lot of work, but watching him throw high fastballs that were freezing the Twins batters when they know that you got a 50% chance of getting a fastball, and watching the way his breaking ball came across and was dropping off the end of the table like that. I mean, the stuff is real for sure. And so I don't see how you could be anything other than excited about what this guy could be if he learns to harness it. And frankly, if he learns to put guys away and not go 3-2 on everyone and then have to sit there and throw 3 or 4 pitches just to try and get them to strike out before they finally freeze on that fastball. Because, it's a lot of fouling balls off, and some of it were purpose pitches. I know Robbie Grossman looked like a guy who was thankful that his hip didn't shatter, or, he didn't lose some other important body parts when he got hit by the pitch. But at the same time, it was like, I don't think he was trying to rush him off the plate. I literally think he just held on to the ball too long. And, you put Robbie Grossman on first base by, smacking him in the hip with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. If you put that over the middle, Robbie Grossman is not hitting that ball. I mean, the best swing all night on him was Bobby Wilson, and that ball was a dying line drive that, frankly, didn't have enough mustard to get out to left field for Polka to catch it. So, I'm excited about it. I think Kopech Day, I think the hype was a little too much for what today represented, and watching a standing O for a 3-2 count on some bum Twins hitters in the first inning of an August game with 2 teams that are going nowhere. I think people can calm down a little bit about that. But frankly, if you're looking at is this guy going to be must-see TV? Is he going to be a must-watch, or is this a game you want to go to if you know that he's going to be on the mound? I think you're getting back to where Chris Sale was when a couple of years ago with the Sox, where you wanted to watch each one of his starts because you want to see what's going to happen. You want to see if you're going to see something amazing.
Can you believe what Mike said at the beginning of this week's episode of the Broadcast Basement?
Well, anytime that man opens his mouth, I'm like, well, wait, what the hell was that?
Right.
But
I mean, it's like one of those things though. Like I've been getting like tweets and everything. Like people have been hitting us up on the Facebook page. Like the people found it very funny, but very weird. I mean, it's definitely worth like the first 5 minutes of the Broadcast Basement. If you've never listened to the Broadcast Basement, broadcastbasement.com. It's on Apple. It's on the Stitcher. It's on Spotify, just like Sox in the Basement is. You want to just listen to 5 minutes of the Broadcast Basement. If after those 5 minutes you still want to listen to more, you're as weird as we are. If after those 5 minutes you think that there's something wrong with all of us, I promise it'll never bleed on to the Sox in the Basement podcast. You can still come back here and be safe. But there's something wrong with that boy.
Yes, there is definitely something wrong with him. But I will say this. If after the first 5 minutes you decide that there's something wrong with us, you might as well keep listening because nobody sees a train wreck about to happen and then turns away and is like, no, I can't watch that. You want to see the train hit. You want to see what's going to happen.
Next week, I expect Dave back, possibly even Dad down here in the basement bar as well. Ron Kittle could come at any moment, so prepare yourself. If you have not subscribed to the show, do so. If you have not told your friends about it, do so. If you have not bought into the rebuild, do yourself a favor. Do so. This is Sox in the Basement. We'll see you next week. Everywhere podcasts can be found and always at soxinthebasement.com.
Another show is wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement. And the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudie's Basement. Broadcast Basement. The Nudie's Basement. The Broad Basement. Slancha. That was like Dropkick Murphys or something, right? I felt like it.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always on soxinthebasement.com.